Hey, I'm out here at Paynesville, Papa Echo X-Ray. Figured I'd throw a quick hangar tour video up on YouTube. I never post anything on here, and I've kind of taken a leave of absence from Instagram. I'm ready to start talking to myself again, and there's nobody around here this evening to judge me for it. So here's my airplane. It's a Fisher Celebrity. It was built in 1995. I bought it in 2023. It only had about 100 hours on it. We're just over 400 now. It has a Lycoming 0235 L2C, so the same as a Tomahawk or a Cessna 152. It makes about 115 horsepower. The plane weighs about low 700 pounds, cruises at about 90 miles per hour. It's very draggy. It's not aerobatic. Burns about 5.5 gallons per hour, holds 12 gallons of gas up in a header tank. Optionally, you could have built these with wing tanks, kind of with the Iranka Champ arrangement where you have ball valves to drain it down into the header tank. This one doesn't have that, but I'm ready to get out after 90 minutes in this thing anyhow. So that's the plane, the number one thing you got to have in a hangar, I suppose. So I moved in here May, March, April, early 2024. First thing I did was upgrade all the lights. It used to have an outlet here and one light switch. I ran the outlets over here, extended them over my workbench, and I put a second circuit up the wall, and that's where all these string lights are plugged in. So you've got the high intensity lighting in the form of 6 high bay UFO LEDs. I believe they're 200 watts each. 3 was plenty of light, but it cast shadows, so I added another 3 to fill in the gaps, which required running some conduit around the ceiling. And then the second option is this low intensity mood lighting inspired by Joe Costanza, Bananas with all the S's, who flies that beautiful yellow J3. This is nice if you fly right up until sunset and then you're in here, doing a little maintenance, wiping the leading edges and stuff. The amber tone of these lights doesn't seem to attract mosquitoes like the high bay. But if you've got to swap cylinders or something, you definitely want the high intensity lighting. I got a workbench. Built that mostly out of leftover wood from our pole barn at the farm. Had to buy a sheet of plywood, but everything else is, shipping dunnage and old 2x6s and stuff. Got the beer fridge on there, little roller stand chair. Fans, of course. It gets sweltering in here in the summer. Got this old Chaz Parker vise. I've dated it, I believe, to the late 1800s. I found it in a pile of scrap, and it was just the top part. It didn't have this 3-bolt base on it. There was no way to mount it to a workbench. So I found this thick plate of steel, and this is all manual machined on a Kearney and Trecker 2D rotary head milling machine. I just kind of used subtractive machining to hewn it out of a solid billet, and then I distressed it all with a ball peen hammer and an assortment of chisels and a needle scaler and stuff, so that it looks kind of like a casting before I painted it. I brought it over here. It's got a little slop in it and stuff. It's not a precision Wilton bullet, but it gets the job done for the hangar. In fact, all my tools over here are kind of second rate. I just went through everything back in the shop and took all the duplicates out, brought it all over here, and then went to Harbor Freight and got some basic sockets and combination wrenches. There's my big screw up from day number 1 of owning the airplane. Poor technique out of a 9-hour tailwheel pilot combined with low prop clearance from the shorter gear that it used to have on it. I guess I should mention I designed and fabricated this extended gear for it. It's all chromoly tubing. I kind of started at the wheel end and moved inward. So I got 6-inch cart wheels, milled an additional 3 holes in them. These are golf cart tires that I've seen guys use on Kit Foxes. We're similar weight and similar landing speed, so I figured they'd be safe. And then I've got a 90cc Chinese 4-wheeler brake behind it. And this whole node in here is kind of my own design. That's among many of the modifications and upgrades I've made to this airplane since I've owned it. Got some cool decor everywhere, you know, automobilia, cheap eBay signs meant to replicate porcelain signs and whatnot. This one I had custom printed from an Amazon vendor. My uncle Greg used to fly for Orient Air back in the 80s, maybe into the early 90s. What they did was ferried light aircraft all over the world. So he's got about 100 transatlantic crossings, bringing Pipers and Cessnas and stuff, air tractors, all that, to Europe and Africa. So kind of hung that up as an homage to him. Nice photo I snapped with the iPhone over on runway 29er here last summer, I think. You can get all this stuff just printed on canvas on Amazon, super affordable, made in a Chinese sweatshop or whatever. Gotta have the maintenance whiteboard. Of course, the leather jacket makes flying open cockpit more comfortable. Brooms, anti-fatigue mat, keep the place nice and tidy. I built myself an aluminum tow bar to move the plane around. It felt a little abusive, kicking it free every time I wanted to pull it into the hangar. Got my wall of many things here. Some salvaged letters from my friend's automotive shop that was getting rebranded. Spray paint sign that's inspired by a sign I saw down in Olivia at a fly-in pancake breakfast. Piper Cub on floats for ambiance. This is another Orient Air piece. This is actually where I got that art from. I snapped a good photo of this. This was his backup wobble pump and electric transfer pump for in-air refueling from the ferry tanks to the wing tanks when he was over the ocean. Of course, you got all the Rock Auto stuff. I'm a CFI now, so I keep a couple of headsets in here so my students can bum one. Some camera gear, spare tail wheel shoes, and then of course all the maintenance items and stuff are in here. Old Stanley Vidmar cabinet I got at auction. Cylinders, of course, somebody gave me those. They're from a Continental. These are something to do with this issue I've been having with the Superior Millennium cylinders and their poor metallurgy, creating this washboard wear pattern. So those are actually old worn out OEM cylinders. I've got the new Lycoming cylinders on the plane now, and Superior's getting all their junk back, and hopefully they issue me a refund. Got the cool lady head with the Fagan Fighters Museum hat. She's just a good way to hold a headset here in the hangar. This is inspired by a sticker that I saw on a Fairmont rail car, a little putt-putt speeder. So I hand painted that on a piece of thin plywood. I think they call it underlayment. I'm not a builder. Something to do with flooring. Of course, the hangar is not complete without a gigantic flag and a windsock. This one is Chinese of origin. It came from Amazon. You can tell that it's poorly made because the stars don't fill in the field as they should. Fuel caddy. I haven't figured out a good way to tow that over to Quick Trip and back with 30 gallons of gas in it behind my scooter. Got the sea air compressor, 240 volt. I wired in these two outlets here. I was building a new stainless exhaust for the airplane. I needed to get it all cut up with my dual bandsaw, tacked together, and then I was gonna pull it back to the shop and back purge it and weld it out, which ultimately I did. But I needed 240 over here, so I started at the outlet end, wired everything up, bent all the conduit. But as you can see, there's no disconnect. So plug your ears if you're an inspector or something, but I very carefully ran all the wire through here and out into the room, making sure I didn't touch anything in there. Just screwed it all into the breakers and then whoop, pushed it into the live panel, and I had power. So got a welder outlet and a compressor outlet here. This is for the roof vent. Just leave it open in the summer, let some of this hot air escape. Cords and hoses, another picture on canvas from Amazon. Some glamour shots, whatever. You gotta have junk hanging up. EAA, of course. And then we got some kind of spirits of aviation here. Charles Lindbergh, Wiley Post, Amelia with a weird sepia tone. We got Bob Hoover with the Mustang. what's his face, Hughes, with the spruce goose, troubled looking character. And I believe that might be Ernest Gone. My friend Tyson gave me this whiskey barrel. He owns a distillery called Skullven down in Brooklyn Park. So I burnt it up with a rosebud tip on the torch, did the same thing to some wood, made a top, kind of studded it with hardware and whatnot, built a base. So I've got a little place to eat lunch and peruse magazines or whatever. Sport Aviation threw the plane on the cover. They confronted me at Oshkosh. Well, confronted's maybe the wrong word, but they approached me at Oshkosh last year and asked if they could take a photo of it for the magazine. I was picturing a little postage stamp on the back page, but what ended up happening, I guess, is a 6 or 8 page spread in here, which was unexpected to say the least. So that's cool, I guess, featuring the more approachable aspects of aviation instead of what's new in the Cirrus G7 Plus and the Piper Meridian or whatever. So I got the blown up aluminum print of the magazine cover there. These, we believe, are Fisher wings. They came out of the hayloft in a friend's father's barn. They were all covered in filth, so I cleaned them up and hung them up from the ceiling. Kind of a nice piece of decor. For some reason, this hangar had one drywall wall and then everything else is ribbed tin. And I think it's because it's an end unit and this is like a partial storage unit or something. So I don't know if it has to do with fire code or what, but I moved in and it was taped and mudded, but it hadn't been sanded or top coated or anything. So the mud absorbed all the moisture from the air and it was all peeling off. So I refinished this whole wall. And then it had some damage to the drywall down here, so I found this rustic barn tin and made this wainscoting, whatever they call it. Again, I'm not a builder. So that's cool. Got the red carpet on Facebook Marketplace and the genuine Rattler Buck 10, 110 two-stroke with moped plates. Shh. That's it. That's the hangar. Please don't rob me. Stay current, stay proficient, all that other stuff that Josh Flowers says. See ya.